Hey YouTube. Well, today we're going to be working on this old piece of junk. See if we can hear it run and see how much oil it burns. I've only gotten it to sputter, and each time I did, it blew some blue smoke out of the muffler. So let's see what kind of condition this engine's in. I did a few things to it off camera. I'll show you real quick. One of the first things you'll probably notice, I spray painted the block. I did that yesterday and it's dry today. Looks better than it did before. There's some of the powder aluminum, I guess. I'm going to replace this muffler. It's not bolted down, but I have my spare recoil on here. We'll get that bolted down. And here's the old gas tank and carburetor. Primer bolt feels good, so I'm thinking the carburetor is probably okay. I have a spare tank in better shape. Let's see if we can transplant that, put it back on the lawnmower, and see what this sounds like. Here is our donor tank, all clean. I sloshed a little gas inside and dumped that out. I cleaned in here where the carburetor sits with some carb cleaner. So next step, let's get this carburetor off, evaluate it, and if it looks okay, definitely clean it. And the carburetor is off. You can see in there, I think, just how dirty this is. Underneath, it looks surprisingly clean. A little dirt there on the fuel filter. So I'm going to spray this off. The crankcase ventilation elbow here actually has some electrical tape on it. I'll bet I can find a good spare in my collection of crap. These screw heads, you can probably see, they had mud and dirt sitting on them for so long that they started to rust. So I will not be reusing them. But the next step, I'm going to see how this cleans up and probably put it back on my good tank. There is our carburetor, all clean. Cleaned up very well. Primer bulb even turned out to still have some red color on it once I cleaned it. Here's the bad parts, the bad tank, the bad screws, the bad elbow with tape on it, and the gasket that fits under the air filter. It's pretty rotten. So there's a new gasket, or a spare gasket, a spare elbow, our clean tank, and I have a new diaphragm to put in it. So let's put all this back together. And just like that, the carburetor is back on the tank, along with the crankcase ventilation elbow and our air hat gasket. So let's put this back on the lawnmower. I took the recoil off just to show you the difference. This is that powdery aluminum. I didn't paint the flywheel because it's covered. You can just see a vast difference between that and the fresh coat of paint that I put on it the other day. You'll also notice these springs have seen better days. This spring has sprung. And I noticed too that little Z-bend guy right there. He's all cattywampus, so I gotta scrounge up another one of them. This right here is why it pays to keep junk. I'm gonna steal these springs and a little hook that goes to the air vane off of this junk engine, transfer them to this engine, which I hope runs. This engine, I think the rings were shot at, I can't remember if it had low compression or burned oil, but one way or another it was no good. But these parts are like gold. Our good spare springs. Now they're on. What I ended up doing, I just switched the whole bracket. So I took out the 3 head bolts on this engine, and that way I wouldn't have to mess with remembering which spring goes where. They were all attached here. I just transplanted this whole bracket and attached it to the air vane. And now it should be ready to have the carburetor put on. The carburetor is back on. 1 bolt there, 1/2 inch. 1 bolt in the front, 3/8. Now I'm putting back on the recoil. It's held on with 3 bolts. They're all 3/8. 2 in the back, 1 in the front. I just thought I would share one thing. The cable on this, it works, it's not great. But look at this. I had one brand new in my collection, the exact fit. I went to put it on, it broke. See right there? So beware of what you buy on the internet. This broke here with very little force put on it. So I'm going to have to reuse the old one for now. And I will share one other helpful tip. I'm going to replace that nasty looking muffler with a spare. And I have found an easy way to get those off. If you have a wrench for getting oil filters off, it fits on these mufflers perfectly. I will put on the muffler from the donor engine, which I've gotten all the springs and brackets and everything else from. Too bad I didn't have a spare cable. That should do it. Okay, let's see what we got. I did top off the oil and I put gas in it. And it's cold. And I can hear it frying. Running too fast. Okay, take 2. So all in all, this guy sounds pretty darn good. It's not smoking out of the muffler. I let this run quite a while. Some other day I'll see if I can get that blade off from underneath. Would not surprise me if it's rusted on there. If it is, I won't worry about it. But for being a garbage pick lawnmower, it sounds pretty good. Got it going with a hodgepodge of spare parts. These little 3.5 horsepower Briggs. You wouldn't know it by looking at them, but they're pretty tough little engines. So I think that'll do it for today. Another day I'll give it a tune-up. It's got the oil that it had in there was pretty black, so we'll change the oil. And I just put a used spark plug in it right now. And I'm probably, if it continues to sound good, I may wash and paint that deck. I have a can of red spray paint. Still need to do something about these sad, droopy handlebars. I don't know if I can put some kind of L bracket back here, screw it to the deck and help support those handlebars or not, but I'll look into that later now that I know this runs. Thanks for watching.